And we are back. Welcome to the Doc and Doc Show. We are so excited about, what we're doing? We're growing up. We're giving you permission to not be an adolescent about your sexuality, to really let that be part of you, because you know what? It is your birthright. Your sexuality is your birthright. People ask, well, am I born that way? Sometimes. What do you think?
I think we're born that way. We have an onboard therapy machine in our head that's telling yes or no.
See, I like that, but I also think, and my research says that, of course I'm kind of Freudian, that our psychosexual development happens when we're 4 or 5 years old. And while that's going on in our brain, something happens, whether it's something we see, think about, experience, and that gives us our cathexis.
What's that?
I looked that up.
What's
and
cathexis?
what is it? What did you learn?
I learned that it was confusing. So I'm hoping that you can tell us about it.
Okay, let's hear more about it.
That's one of those words that sex therapists know.
Catharsis a lot, but not the cathexis.
Maybe it's the same kind of thing?
Cathexis. It's what turns you on. So it's your personal erotic myth. It's what turns you on.
So it's your menu. Your menu.
Yeah. And you know what? It
Flip
doesn't
the page.
change.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it doesn't change. People want to... Oh, and here's one of my issues that... They want to cure somebody who has a certain sexual, if we want to call it fetish, but their personal erotic story. We don't think it's good in our society, or some people don't think it's good, and we're bad and evil. You know what? You're not going to change. There are places that say, we can change this. You don't change your cathexis. What do you think?
So it's imprinted from the very early ages, 5 or 6. And that's the way you are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what turns us on. But it's okay. It's our personal erotic myth.
Okay, so let me ask about the personal erotic myths you've seen in your office that maybe somebody listening today is going to be like, okay, maybe that's not so crazy. Maybe it's okay that I feel this way.
Oh, I always tell them that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the actual details of, because I'm sure there are some people listening right now that are like, okay, well, that's great, Dr. Curts, but what I feel is really creepy.
Okay.
You know
They're
what I mean?
judging it. Sure, absolutely.
So let's just go for it. Let's just tell them what this cathexis is.
And that's when you go to a sex therapist and you talk about it. Now, there are some things that today are socially unacceptable. If you have a cathexis to be a pedophile, it isn't going to change. So you have to learn to manage it, but not act out on it, or you're going to end up in jail.
Jail will be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't hurt children. I'm so against that. So
what about the middle of the spectrum?
Tell me.
Well, so somebody listening right now who's not at the other end of the spectrum where it's like the real no-no.
Where they're going to go to jail?
Right. Okay. So
that's probably the only no-no, I think.
That one and bestiality, probably.
It's against the law.
In this country.
Yeah,
we've talked about this on a previous show saying
because
we're really addressing
can't consent.
Right.
Like
so anything that can't consent probably is what we're going to throw off the table right now.
Exactly.
And then anybody else who's listening to this right now and is going, well, I have this fetish. I have this thing that kind of turns me on inside, but I don't know if that's normal or not. That's
you
who I want to talk to.
You use the word we don't want to use anymore.
Yeah, and because I'm going to speak for the population that may not realize that the word normal is the biggest fallacy of all. The word normal is the biggest myth that we want to just exit from our minds. We want to realize that there are way more than 50 shades of gray. Nobody's the black and white. Nobody's in the box. Call in. Tell us what your thing is. Let us help you realize that there are many people out there. You know what? I'm going to challenge those out there right now. Why don't you call us in? Just call it in. And take that chance. You don't have to say your name. It can be completely anonymous. Let's just hear you talk about what really drives you. And let's help other people and yourself realize that you are not out of the box, really. There's no box. There was never a box. And you are your own beautiful, holistic person, mind, body, spirit, that has their own feelings about themselves and wants to explore that. This is part of your nature and part of who you really are. And this is what I do with Let It Loose.
Please call us.
Let it loose, guys.
Please call.
The bottom line, though, I think in this authenticity is with another person is consensual. It has to be consensual.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you want to, and I don't know why I'm using this, if you want to tie somebody up, they have to want to be tied up, and it has to be somebody that you know really well, and that there's trust in the relationship. And that's important. I mean, you don't just hook up on the first date and say, hey, want to get tied up? That would be dumb. So we've got to be smart.
Okay, I think that's a better idea.
Well, and then when you go on these FetLife dates, if that's what you're going to do, or I think some dates on Tinder now, you can actually specify what you're in the mood for. It's DTF. I'm not going to say what that means, but for those who may know what that means, DTF down to...
Downtown Fillmore?
Down to do whatever.
Not downtown Fillmore, okay.
Then some people have consented prior to meeting to get tied up. They're meeting for the purpose of exploring the kink together, and FetLife is a place that you can do that.
I've told this story, I think, once before. I had a patient, never name, in another state, a wonderful human being, but he wanted to be tied up with duct tape. Against the wall. So do you remember that?
We've heard the story, but tell it again for those who are listening.
Important.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
And I told him
it's a safety issue. It's
he
important.
could have it safely. And so he went out of town, she took his money, got tied off, and left him in this cheap hotel
with duct
room.
tape.
Yes, and this was a wonderful, well-known human being, that I work with. So, and I think
Did he get a refund?
No.
Oh, dang it.
Isn't that horrible? Oh, poor guy. But anyway, be careful. Be careful.
Right.
You've got to enjoy your erotic myth, but do it in a safe place, I think.
Okay, so how do people start to enjoy their erotic myth? By first becoming aware of it, first then becoming accepting of it, and then seeking out how they can do it safely.
Well, I've heard this story, and I think if you ever do any of those dates like you guys are talking about, you should have an outside person waiting for you. Or you can validate.
A safety call.
That's right. You can call or something.
Somebody that you just text before you go out, before you meet that person, before you get tied up or whatever it is, that you just write them and you say, I'm at this location. I'm going to meet this person, whoever they are, and they already know your number. You just say, I'm going to be here for this certain amount of time.
Right.
So somebody knows where you are.
It's this particular person that I worked with, and this was years ago, his wife came in and we talked about his fantasies, and she just kept saying, no, you are just too weird. You can go somewhere else and do that because you are weird.
The wife said that?
Yes. And so we couldn't convince her, but she would give him permission to
go elsewhere.
Okay,
that's actually really, I'm so glad you just brought that up. Isn't that so important, too? I mean, like when we're in the therapy setting and we're with a couple that one of them just will not subscribe to it. And that's okay, too, because not everybody, if we're all on different spectrums and nobody's in a box, it's not fair of me to say you have to subscribe to the same thing I do on those 150 levels between black and white.
But we don't want the couple, we don't want them to deny their partner.
Right.
So how do you do that?
Well,
how do you negotiate?
As therapists, how do you handle where one person in the relation says, I want to do FetLife or Pornhub, and the other one says, well, I just want to stay home and watch the news.
Right.
They're so different in what they want. Can you save that relationship?
There's hope as long as both people are open to the suggestions that we offer. There's so many different avenues to take. You have to work with the person. It's a very fluid environment when you're in therapy. So you have to kind of go along with what that person or that couple is presenting you with. And if they both seem like they're open to different kind of avenues to try, you try each one. It doesn't work, you're going to try another one. It doesn't work, you're going to try another one. You just keep going until one seems to work. And if it doesn't, then you bring them back and you have a session about why it's not working.
What do you think, Doctor?
I address the spiritual piece with couples,
okay,
especially.
What do you do?
And there's a great book called True Love and I cannot pronounce his name correctly. He is a Vietnamese monk. He's a Zen master, and he wrote the book True Love, and his name is Thich Man Han.
Okay.
I believe HAHN.
But the book is called True Love.
True Love, Thich Nhat Hanh. And he's just a wonderful spiritual man. And he talks about being in a relationship and how you do that spiritual. You go and say, you get to know yourself, and then you say, my dear, I know you are suffering. How can I help you alleviate the suffering? Because that's what we want to do. We want to alleviate suffering. So
sounds very Buddhist.
But you have to be involved in yourself.
It's true, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, you have to be involved in yourself to be able to even ask that. If you have suffering in yourself, you can't necessarily show up to your partner and truly ask them how you can alleviate their suffering if you have not first done so with yourself.
You do the individual work, correct?
Right.
Correct. And then you can be in a relationship, and it becomes very loving. And so if you have the person that wants to watch the news, and then the person that
wants to go to Pornhub.
Wants to go. Well, Pornhub is a website, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Both on media of
wants
some kind.
To do something. That's how you lovingly negotiate that relationship. And I think it's a highly spiritual thing. I'm not sure many people are up to it. We're still adolescent in terms of spirituality.
Right.
But
and sexuality.
But in the 21st century, how would that change?
How would that change?
In 21st century, you want to have gadgets that make it work?
Okay. Can I answer this one?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Go for it.
Okay. So, obviously, every story that we tell is going to remain totally anonymous as far as clients that we refer to that we've had. So stories that we've had in our sessions that remind us of something we're bringing up here, everybody's always going to remain anonymous, and personal details will remain confidential. But I had a client once who was a transvestite, and they weren't transvestites. They were into transvestites. That was their fetish.
They wanted to dress as a transvestite?
No, so I had it wrong. They were into transvestites.
They wanted to date someone who cross-dressed.
They had sexual fantasies about those who cross-dressed. Okay. And they did not engage in that themselves, but they had fantasies about those cross-dressers, those transvestites.
They have a personal erotic myth about that.
As Dr. Curts has beautifully mentioned, that is their erotic myth that they had inside of them. They're in a couple, they're in a relationship with their spouse who has no idea that they have this need, that they have this desire for a transvestite. So I'm in therapy with them, and through the therapy that I did with them, the person who had the fetish revealed to their partner that they had this fetish. I then had to deal with the partner coming into the awareness that their partner had this fetish. So I had to help her deal with that.
Let me just squeeze in there. Fetish is not a disease.
Right.
It is not anything weird. It's something different. It's a personal erotic myth. Go ahead.
I love that you just mentioned that, because words are really important. The word normal keeps coming up. We hate that word. We're throwing it out. Yeah, well. The word fetish is just as bad. Okay.
And kink.
Kink. I personally like the word kink, but okay. So kink is another one. These are all constructs. Words are constructs, people. They are up to our own interpretation to analyze and digest inside of us. They are just words thrown out there so that we as linear people can understand what we're doing here on this planet. So just knock them out of your head.
So
you are who you are.
Back to the gadgets that Dr.
This is
Jenkins.
in answer to your question, how was I going to help this woman understand that her man wanted a transvestite occasionally?
Right.
Well, I helped through the sex therapy that we employ to get gadgets involved. So I had her buy a strap-on and get really interested in having that strap-on.
She was open to it.
She was. Now,
good for her.
Maybe... And that is a good for you, for sure. That's what I was saying. I mean, couples are fluid. People are fluid. You hope that you're going to be open enough to taking the suggestions that are offered in the therapeutic setting. If you're not, then you try another one. But you deal with the person as who they are, where they are. She was open to getting that strap on, getting into that strap on, and being that entity that could open to her own masculine energy, because everybody has masculine and feminine energy in them. A transvestite just has, all the levels of anatomy from both sides. But whatever that fetish is, if she could help her husband by fulfilling that for him, that could bring them closer. She was open to that.
True love is accepting. True love is not compartmentalizing. In other words, I love my husband or my wife, but I don't like this at all, so we're done. You can't compartmentalize it.
Wow.
That's true love.
You know,
But actually, no, because if she'd gone the other way, if she had said, I'm really not interested in his transvestite fantasies, either she was going to be get to the point where she would say, okay, go and seek that out, and I'll be okay with that, like you had just mentioned another couple that did that, or she's completely valid in saying, I am really not okay with that. And then it takes on a different direction of what the therapy is going to look like, because maybe at that point, the more authentic the husband gets in regards to what he wants and needs to make him whole, they then see that they're not whole together. If that's not what's going to make her whole, she's then totally valid in her truth. Mm-hmm. And then you have to help them part in an amicable way. So it's no true love just by accepting what your partner wants. Mm-hmm. That's a very unfair thing to say about what true love is. You know, I don't know how I would be able to handle my husband coming home saying he wanted a transvestite. Maybe it would take a lot of therapy to figure out if I could do that. But it doesn't mean that I'm not truly in love with him if I decide I'm not going to do it.
Well, you're in love with part of him, not that sexual, authentic self.
It's a good debate, actually.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think that when you talk about transsexualism,
right.
There's a lot
it's
of
a hard one.
There's a lot of people, you know, I mean, Dr. Curts knows Caitlin, right? You know Caitlin.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, Caitlin is a lesbian transsessal. There's straight transsexuals. There's all different types of transsexuals.
Right.
So I think when you do therapy, you have to figure out what kind of transsexual you want. The hermaphrodites that people are looking for,
they're born with both.
It's very, very rare.
Yeah.
The intersex.
You just don't.
Jamie
see
Lee
that
Curtis was a hermaphrodite.
Well, I read that, but who knows? You know.
Okay,
She has kids.
It's not proven.
No, she has kids. So
can you get rid of one anatomy over another?
they do that sometimes.
Okay.
When they're 4 or 5. But now what John Hopkins is doing, which it pioneered the whole surgery, is they're not doing the surgery anymore because there's so much. The highest suicide rate is among them.
Oh, it's so terrible.
It's better to stay just get your top or bottom fixed and leave the rest alone.
I mean, look, spiritually, if we're talking about this, can you imagine how they must feel inside of them if you feel you've been born a different gender than what you have been subscribed, than what you have been given as a human being? Mm-hmm. You must feel trapped inside of your body.
And here our society says, oh, that's weird because we don't understand.
There's another word.
Or somebody told it, that's weird.
Right.
Actually, we have to understand that person's suffering because that's where they are at this point. So we have to be compassionate and understand that.
And we're gonna close down here for one moment, and we'll be right back. This is the Doc and Doc
we
show
can
with
come back,
Alicia
don't worry.
Bye-bye.
Hi, and you are back with Doc and Alicia. And we are here talking, we're talking about growing up in the 21st century and growing up with sexuality and not being adolescents. In the first place, Dr. Jenkins and I were talking at the break about why do we have to put people in different compartments, like you are a white male physician, or you are a white male, or you are a Hispanic. I mean, why do we have to do that? My only thought is so we can judge you. I mean, we have to grow up.
And what they say is that when you judge others really predominantly, it's actually because you're judging yourself. So you really want to hone in on today, if you're listening to this, just think for a second later, marinate. I always say marinate in this concept. If you judge others, what are you actually judging about yourself? Really, we're all mirrors for each other. We're all mirrors for each other.
Sounds like Beverly Hills Housewives. Where
people are the most judgmental
they're always
about them.
judging the other woman's whatever.
Oh, God, they have nothing else to do.
And
she drinks too much.
That's a judgment, too, isn't it?
Yeah. Even bored. Yeah, you're right.
It's a judgment, too.
Shame on me.
We all judge, but if you can come home to yourself, this is truly coming home to yourself. If you can start to take accountability, responsibility for who you are, you're coming home to your true self. And then it allows you to love yourself for who you are, what you want, what those quote-unquote fetishes are inside of you. You stop judging yourself for it. When we stop judging ourselves, we stop judging others. And that is when the boxes cease to exist.
Hope so. We were talking about in this growing up stage of sexuality. We were talking about the internet, how that has opened. What's the Bert and Ernie show on Broadway that said the internet
Avenue
is
Q?
for Avenue Q.
The internet is for porn.
Yeah.
The internet is for porn.
Okay.
Grab your and double click. Porn, porn, porn.
So true. Very cute. You should.
And our
see.
show's fun.
Yeah.
Because Alicia sings sometimes.
But we've got the internet, and we have other things that can help us along. Gadgets, right, Dr. Jenkins?
Gadgets. And, I usually go to the hardware store on the weekend,
God, that
Called
sounds
the Love
scary.
but I never stray too far from the
I just
the
clenched
nails
my thighs.
and the nuts and bolts.
And the nuts. Well, there are places you can go, and we're going to do a show on sex toys and gadgets and try to normalize that. I mean, come on, it's just for fun. It's not a substitute to a partner. Let's get that normal again.
Well, we're going to
Normal. Oh my gosh,
Is it
smack
possible?
That word. I know, right?
Is it possible to do
We're all
a
guilty
remote
of it.
for here? A remote if we do it from another site? So that's what we're thinking about. Dr. Curts knows somebody who owns a erotic store, and we thought
It's right close to us.
we would go there and do the show from there.
That'd be
Wouldn't
fun.
that be fun?
So there's
You ready for it?
something called Lush. It's a toy called Lush, and it's Wi-Fi operated. So your partner puts it inside of you, and then they walk away, and they have it like connected to their phone or whatever, and they can control it by their phone at the push of a button. So it vibrates, or it tingles, or it like does something weird inside of the woman. So it's a female inserted toy.
I had a couple patient that did that. They took a long car ride together.
Yes.
Both of them are doctors. They were on the other side of the country, not outing anybody.
That's perfect.
And they went on this long car ride, and that's what they bought. And he could
Very remotely.
give her an orgasm while they're driving.
Remotely.
They said
Yes.
it was fun.
Yes.
Really fun.
Well, and especially when you're the recipient, because you have no idea when it's happening.
Honey, do you want to go on a
it's
ride, a
fun
long
thing.
ride?
Let's take a long Sunday drive,
Yes, right,
darling.
yeah, put the top down.
The longer, the better.
And we're laughing about all this, and we're bringing it up just because the serious point is we want to bring adulthood to the 21st century. Authenticity, personal erotic myths. And you know what? It's okay as long as it's consensual. Fine with me.
But so consensual. Let's just take out the idea of the partner for a second, because I think that adds extra pressure. When you're trying to come home to you being okay with something in yourself, then you have to think about another person being okay with it. Let's
process.
just start with you, right?
Absolutely.
Let's just start with you. Forget your partner for a second, and maybe you're single, so it's even easier.
Oh, yeah.
Just you coming into what you're into. Just come into what you're into. And stop judging yourself for it. If you're not hurting anybody, if it's consensual, meaning if your thing is to want something that's not going to be hurting a child or an animal, and anything that, can provide its consent, then go for it.
Was it the priests used to do? They used to flagellate or hit themselves
Right.
for evil thoughts. I mean, they all had it.
Yeah. But we're going to have to close it up here pretty quickly. But we're going to be back next week. If anybody has any topics they'd like us to talk about, please call us. And you can call us at 298-5487. That's KHTS in downtown Newhall. We're here with Dr. Curts and myself, Dr. Jenkins, and doctoral student Alicia Dupa. So we're going to be right back next week. So please give us a call. Thank you.